The velvet curtains separating the auction floor from the storage vault smelled like dust and old money. My fingertips traced the edge of a gilt frame, searching for the catalog number that would lead me to the Blackwell Codex, the 15th century manuscript stolen from my grandmother's estate 3 months ago. Around me, crates of looted art sat like confessions waiting to be heard. I'd spent 6 years becoming invisible at the Harrington Public Library, mastering the art of silence and observation. Cataloging medieval texts taught me patience. Decoding provenance records taught me how thieves thought. Tonight, both skills had gotten me past security at this underground auction, dressed in borrowed designer black and carrying forged credentials as an art appraiser. The codex wasn't just rare. It was the last thing my grandmother had touched before the stroke that left her unable to speak. Inside its illuminated pages, she'd hidden a family tree proving our claim to land worth millions. Without it, we'd lose everything to distant cousins who'd hired these same thieves. My pulse hammered as I found the right crate. The wood creaked when I pried it open, revealing leather bindings and gold leaf that caught the dim light. There, the Blackwell crest embossed on burgundy calfskin. Looking for something specific? I spun around, heart stopping. The man blocking the doorway wore a perfectly tailored black suit that whispered wealth and danger in equal measure. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from marble, sharp jaw, straight nose, eyes the color of smoke before a storm. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made the air feel thinner. James Thornton. I recognized him from newspaper photos that never quite captured the intensity of him in person. The city's most powerful crime lord, the man who controlled everything from shipping to politics through a network of legitimate businesses, fronting for something much darker. "I'm with the appraisal team," I managed, forcing my voice steady. "Catalog verification." His gaze swept over me, assessing. "Funny. I approved every appraiser personally. I don't remember you." Before I could respond, another voice cut through the tension. Well. Thornton, hiding the best pieces in the back room, Patrick Sullivan emerged from the shadows, his smile sharp as broken glass, older, rougher around the edges, with the kind of calculated charm that set my teeth on edge. "And who's this lovely creature you're keeping to yourself?" The rivalry between them was legendary. Two empires constantly circling, looking for weakness. Sullivan ran the docks. Thornton controlled everything else. The auction tonight was neutral ground, a rare truce to liquidate shared assets. Sullivan's eyes traveled over me with the kind of appraisal that made my skin crawl. She's absolutely irresistible. What happened next defied logic. James moved with startling speed, his hand closing around my waist and pulling me against his side. The contact sent electricity through every nerve ending. His body was solid, warm, radiating controlled power. "And mine," he said, his voice dropping to something cold and lethal. I should have protested, should have pulled away. Instead, I found myself frozen, acutely aware of his fingers spread across my hip, the expensive cedar and leather scent of him, the way every person in that storage room suddenly looked at me differently. Sullivan's expression shifted. Surprise, then calculation, then something uglier. "Yours. Since when do you bring dates to business, Thornton?" "Since I stopped trusting you not to poach what belongs to me." James's tone could have frozen nitrogen. His hand tightened fractionally, a possessive claim that should have terrified me. It didn't. Instead, something strange unfurled in my chest. All those years of making myself small, of fading into the background at the library, of letting louder voices drown mine out. They evaporated. Standing there in the circle of his arm, I felt my spine straighten. "I don't appreciate being discussed like property," I heard myself say, my voice carrying an edge I didn't know I possessed. Both men turned to stare at me. "Though I suppose that's fitting, given we're at an auction." Sullivan laughed, genuinely surprised. "She's got fire. Careful, Thornton. This one might burn you." "I'm counting on it." James looked down at me, and something flickered in those storm-gray eyes. Not anger at my interruption, interest. "We should return to the auction floor. I have items to acquire." His hand stayed on my waist as he guided me past Sullivan, past the crates of stolen history, back toward the main hall, where crystal chandeliers illuminated the criminal elite of the city. I should have run, should have screamed, should have done anything except match his stride perfectly, my borrowed heels clicking in rhythm with his expensive shoes. "You're not an appraiser," he murmured, quiet enough that only I heard. "No." "You're looking for something specific, that codex." My breath caught. He'd noticed what I'd been examining in those few seconds before speaking. "It belongs to my family." "Does it?" We reached the edge of the auction floor, but he steered me toward a private alcove instead. His hand finally released my waist, but he positioned himself between me and any exit. "Explain, quickly." The smart move would have been to lie. Instead, I met his eyes and told the truth. My grandmother's estate, the Blackwell collection, stolen 3 months ago. That codex contains documents proving our legal claim to land. Your associates are currently selling to developers. His expression didn't change. You broke into my auction to steal it back, to reclaim what was stolen first. I lifted my chin, refusing to show the terror clawing through my chest. If that makes me a thief, fine, but I'm a thief with a legitimate grievance. For 3 heartbeats, he simply studied me. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth lifted. "You have courage. Stupidity too, but courage. Is there a difference in your world?" "Occasionally." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "Here's what's going to happen. Sullivan saw you with me. If I let you leave now, he'll have you followed, investigated, potentially used against me. That makes you a liability I can't afford." Cold washed through me. "So you're going to—" "Hire you," he interrupted, "as my fiancé. For 6 months you play the role convincingly. Public appearances, private dinners, enough visibility that Sullivan believes the relationship is real. In exchange, I return the codex to your grandmother, with full documentation of legitimate provenance." I stared at him. "You want me to fake being engaged to you?" "I want Sullivan to believe you're off limits. He has a habit of targeting anything I show interest in, and I just showed considerable interest." His gaze locked with mine. "This benefits us both. You get your family's property. I get a buffer against Sullivan's provocations, and a companion who apparently knows medieval manuscripts well enough to identify them under pressure. I'm a librarian," I said faintly, "not an actress. You just stood in a room full of criminals and critiqued how we discussed you. You'll be fine." He extended his hand. 6 months, Grace Mitchell. I know your name. I know everything about everyone who enters my territory. The question is whether you're brave enough to say yes." I should have said no. Should have run back to my quiet library and my invisible life. Should have found another way to reclaim the codex. Instead, I looked at his offered hand and thought about my grandmother's trembling fingers trying to sign words she could no longer speak. Thought about the cousins circling like vultures. Thought about 6 years of silence and safety that had gotten me nowhere. I thought about how my heart had raced when he'd called me his. 6 months, I agreed, placing my hand in his. "And I want the agreement in writing." His smile was brief but genuine. "I wouldn't expect anything less." That handshake sealed a bargain neither of us fully understood yet. As James led me back into the auction hall, his hand returning to that possessive position at my waist, I caught Sullivan watching us with calculating eyes. The lie had been born from instinct and necessity. What came next would test whether a quiet librarian could survive 6 months in the spotlight beside the city's most dangerous man, or whether she might discover she didn't want to survive it. She wanted to stay. The contract arrived at the library the next morning, delivered by a man in a black suit who looked like he bench-pressed sedans for fun. William Roberts, James's head of security, waited while I read through 12 pages of legal terminology that boiled down to pretend to love him convincingly, don't embarrass him publicly, and absolutely don't fall for him actually. That last part wasn't written explicitly, but it hung between the lines like a warning. "Sign on page 11, William said, his voice surprisingly gentle for someone built like a concrete wall. "Mr. Thornton wants this formalized before the weekend gala." I looked up from my desk, surrounded by returns that needed cataloging. "Weekend gala?" "The Harrington Foundation Charity Ball. You'll be accompanying him, publicly. William's expression remained neutral, but something that might have been sympathy flickered in his eyes. There's a stylist appointment this afternoon. Car will pick you up at 4. My hand trembled slightly as I signed my name. Grace Mitchell, agreeing to 6 months of beautiful fiction. The pen felt heavier than it should have. After William left, my best friend Kate appeared from the reference section, eyes wide. Please tell me I didn't just see what I think I saw. Depends on what you think you saw. A man who looks like he eats danger for breakfast delivering documents to my best friend, who spent the last 6 years avoiding any human interaction more intense than recommending books. Kate perched on my desk, knocking over a stack of medieval poetry. Grace, what did you do? I told her everything. The auction, the codex, James Thornton's impossible offer. With each word, Kate's expression cycled through disbelief, horror, and something uncomfortably close to excitement. You made a deal with the actual Mafia, she said slowly. Allegedly Mafia. Technically, he's a legitimate businessman. Who runs half the criminal enterprises in the city. Kate grabbed my shoulders. Grace, this is insane. You're the woman who apologizes to books when you shelve them wrong. You're going to pretend to date a man who... She stopped, reassessing. Wait, is he attractive? The memory of his hand on my waist sent heat through me. That's not relevant. So yes, very yes. Kate studied my face. Oh my God, you're actually considering this seriously. I already signed the contract. I mean emotionally. You're wondering if the fake could become real. Her voice softened. Honey, men like James Thornton don't fall for women like us. They collect us temporarily, then move on. I know that. But my voice lacked conviction. The stylist appointment transformed me. Claudia, a sharp-eyed woman with silver hair and impeccable taste, circled me like a sculptor assessing marble. Mr. Thornton said you needed a complete wardrobe, she announced. Evening wear, casual elegance, professional grace. He wants you comfortable but confident. For 3 hours, I tried on clothes that cost more than my monthly salary. Dresses in midnight blue and deep burgundy that actually fit my petite frame. Shoes that didn't hurt. Jewelry subtle enough to wear without feeling like a costume. You have good bones, Claudia said, adjusting a silk blouse. And you carry yourself well when you're not trying to disappear. Stop slouching. I straightened automatically, caught off guard by my reflection. The woman looking back wasn't invisible anymore. My phone buzzed. James. Dinner tonight. Il Giardino, 8 p.m. Will sends a car at 7:30. Wear the green dress. How did he know about the green dress? I glanced at Claudia, who smiled innocently. Mr. Thornton has excellent taste, was all she said. Il Giardino occupied the top floor of the Merchant's Tower, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I'd read about it. Reservations booked 6 months out, unless you owned the restaurant. Which, I was learning, James did. He stood when I arrived, and something shifted in his expression as he took me in. The green dress was simpler than the others, but it moved like water, elegant without trying too hard. You look beautiful, he said, and it sounded like an observation rather than flattery. You look exactly the same as yesterday, I replied, then bit my tongue. That wasn't how fake fiancés talked, but he laughed, genuine and brief. Sit. We should discuss expectations. Over wine I barely touched, and food I was too nervous to taste. James outlined the next 6 months. Public appearances twice weekly. Private dinners when necessary. Physical contact. Hand-holding, his arm around my waist. Nothing more intimate unless the situation demanded it. Sullivan will be watching, he said. Looking for cracks in the facade. He'll send people to investigate you, test your story, maybe try to approach you directly. What should I say if he does? Nothing. You walk away, you call me immediately, and you let William handle it. His gaze hardened. Patrick Sullivan is dangerous, Grace. More than you understand. He sees relationships as weaknesses to exploit. And you don't? The question hung between us. James set down his wine glass carefully. I see them as liabilities that require management. There's a difference. Is there? I leaned forward, surprising myself. Because from where I'm sitting, you just acquired a fake fiancé to manage Sullivan's attention. That sounds like exploiting a relationship, too. Except you agreed willingly, for compensation. He tilted his head, studying me. Though I'm beginning to suspect the codex isn't your only motivation. My heart jumped. What else would I want? That's what interests me. Most people in your position would be terrified right now. You're challenging me instead. Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. The librarian who apologizes to books has claws after all. How did you... I stopped. You've been investigating me. Of course, due diligence. He pulled out a slim folder, slid it across the table. Grace Elizabeth Mitchell, 24, graduated top of your class in medieval literature from Harrington University. Specialization in manuscript preservation and provenance authentication. You volunteer teaching literacy at the community center. You've never been in legal trouble. And you have an eidetic memory for written text. I stared at the folder, my privacy laid bare in bullet points. You also, he continued, voice softening slightly, spent the last 6 years deliberately making yourself invisible. Small apartment, few friends, minimal social media presence. You're hiding from something. That's none of your business. It is if it becomes Sullivan's business. He'll dig deeper than I did. James closed the folder. I need to know what he'll find. The old instinct was to deflect, to smile and change the subject. But something about his directness demanded honesty. I was engaged once, I heard myself say, 3 years ago, to someone who seemed perfect, until I realized he was systematically isolating me from everyone I knew. Controlling what I wore, who I talked to, where I went. I met James's eyes. I left, but he didn't take it well. Restraining order, police reports, the whole mess. By the time it ended, I'd lost most of my friends and my confidence, so I chose invisible, safer that way. James's expression went very still. His name. It doesn't matter. He moved to California 2 years ago. His name, Grace. Something in his tone made my spine straighten. Why? Because if he becomes a problem during our arrangement, I handle problems. He said it casually, like offering to fix a leaking faucet. You don't need to? I do. You're mine for the next 6 months, even if it's pretend. That means you're under my protection. Anyone who threatened you before should understand that dynamic has changed. He pulled out his phone. His name. I gave it to him, feeling strange about the protectiveness in his voice. This was just business. Just a transaction. Except it didn't feel transactional when he immediately texted someone with instructions to verify the ex's current location and activities. There, he said, pocketing his phone. Handled. You can't just... I can. I did. Next topic. But his hand reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. You're safe now, Grace. That's not negotiable. The touch lasted 3 seconds, barely contact at all. It rewired something fundamental in my chest. We left the restaurant with his hand at my waist again, that possessive placement that was becoming familiar. A photographer caught us on the sidewalk. James must have tipped them off, and I forced myself not to flinch at the flash. Smile, he murmured against my ear. You're madly in love with me, remember? I'm a terrible actress. Then think about the codex. Think about what you're getting. His thumb traced a small circle through the fabric of my dress. Think about how Sullivan's going to see this photo tomorrow and realize you're completely off limits. I did smile then, genuinely, because the idea of being off limits felt like power I'd never held before. The photo appeared in the society pages the next morning. Thornton's mystery woman identified. Librarian Grace Mitchell captured hearts and dangerous attention. Kate called at 7 a.m. You're viral. Half the city is trying to figure out who you are. I'm nobody. You're somebody now. James Thornton's somebody. She paused. How does that feel? I looked at the photo again. In it, James gazed down at me with something that looked unsettlingly real, while I smiled up at him like I'd forgotten the cameras existed. Terrifying, I admitted. And exhilarating. Is that normal? For falling in love? Yes. For a fake relationship with a crime lord? Honey, there's nothing normal about any of this. But I wasn't falling in love, I told myself firmly. This was just good acting, just convincing performance. The knock at my apartment door interrupted that rationalization. William stood in the hallway, holding a large box. "From Mr. Thornton," he said, "for the charity gala tomorrow night." Inside was the most beautiful dress I'd ever seen. Deep burgundy silk that would move like liquid, and a note in strong, precise handwriting. "Wear this. Dance with me. Convince everyone, including yourself, that you chose me." I ran my fingers over the silk, my reflection in the mirror showing a woman I barely recognized. Confident, visible, claimed. Kate was wrong about one thing. I wasn't falling in love. I was already halfway gone, and we'd barely started the performance. The Harrington Foundation charity ball transformed the Grand Hotel's ballroom into something from a fairy tale, if fairy tales included criminals in tuxedos and stolen art on the auction block. I descended the main staircase in the burgundy dress, acutely aware of every eye tracking my movement. James waited at the bottom, devastating in a black tuxedo that fit him like it had been painted on. When his gaze met mine, something heated flickered through those storm-gray eyes. "Breathtaking," he murmured, offering his arm. His fingers closed over mine, warm and steady. "Ready to perform? Do I have a choice?" "Always, but you're here anyway." He guided me into the ballroom, his hand settling into that now familiar position at my waist. "Which tells me everything I need to know about your courage." The evening unfolded like choreography. James introduced me to mayors and judges, business owners and philanthropists, people who smiled warmly while their eyes calculated my worth and potential weaknesses. I shook hands, made small talk, and discovered that years of helping library patrons had taught me more about reading people than I'd realized. "She's charming," one woman said to James, loud enough for me to hear. "Where did you find her?" "She found me," he replied smoothly. "Best thing that's happened all year." The lie sounded like truth. I was beginning to understand why he was so dangerous. 2 hours in, Patrick Sullivan made his appearance. He cut through the crowd like a shark through water. His date, a stunning blonde in diamonds, clinging to his arm with the desperation of someone who knew her expiration date was approaching. "Thornton," Sullivan said, all false warmth. "And the lovely Grace. You two look convincing." "We are convincing," James replied, his voice dropping to that lethal quiet. "Because it's real." "Is it?" Sullivan's gaze traveled over me with insulting slowness. "Tell me, Grace, what's a nice librarian doing with the city's most notorious—" He paused deliberately. "Businessman?" Before James could respond, I stepped forward slightly. Something about Sullivan's condescension ignited the same defiance I'd felt at the auction. "Learning that books aren't the only things worth collecting," I said, meeting his eyes steadily. "Though some collections have more substance than others." Sullivan's smile went sharp. "Careful, sweetheart. You're playing in waters you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I tilted my head. "You think patronizing me will create friction between James and myself. It won't. You think if you push hard enough, I'll crack and reveal this is fake. I won't." I stepped closer, channeling every ounce of confidence I'd discovered over the past week. "What you don't understand is that I chose this. Not because I'm naive, but because I'm finally tired of being underestimated." For a moment, genuine surprise crossed Sullivan's face. Then his expression hardened. "We'll see how long that confidence lasts." He walked away, but the threat lingered in the air like smoke. James's hand tightened on my waist, pulling me closer. That was either brilliant or incredibly foolish. Can't it be both? With you, apparently yes. He guided me toward the dance floor as the orchestra began a waltz. "You just made yourself a target. Sullivan doesn't forget challenges. Then I'm in good company, since you're already his primary target." I let him pull me into the dance, his hand warm against the small of my back. Besides, the contract said I needed to be convincing. Devoted fiancés defend their partners. They also don't usually antagonize powerful criminals. But he was almost smiling. You're full of surprises, Grace Mitchell. We moved across the floor, and I realized I'd never actually learned to waltz. But James led with such confidence that I followed instinctively, trusting him to navigate us through the other dancers. You're good at this, I observed. I had expensive etiquette training as a child. My mother insisted. Something shadowed his expression. Before everything fell apart. It was the first personal detail he'd shared. I filed it away carefully. What happened? My father was a prosecutor. Dedicated, honest, determined to clean up the city. James's voice went flat. He went after the wrong people. They killed him, made it look like a car accident, and left my mother to raise me alone. She died 5 years later. Heart attack, the doctors said, but I knew better. She died of a broken heart and broken promises. I stumbled slightly, but his grip steadied me. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me everything I needed to know about how this city actually works. Justice is an illusion. Power is the only currency that matters, and sentiment gets you killed. He spun me smoothly, his eyes locked on mine. Which is why this arrangement works. No sentiment, just mutual benefit. Right, I said softly. Just business. But the way he held me contradicted every word. This close, I could see the faint scar along his jawline, could smell the cedar and leather scent that was becoming dangerously familiar, could feel the controlled strength in every movement. The waltz ended. James didn't immediately release me. There's something I need to tell you, he said quietly. The codex. I had it authenticated yesterday. It's genuine, and the documents inside are exactly as you described. Proof of your family's legal claim. Hope surged through me. You'll return it? I'll honor our agreement. But Grace, those documents are worth millions. People have killed for less. His expression grew serious. Your cousins will fight the claim. It won't be a simple legal process. I know. My grandmother knew too. That's why she hid the proof inside the codex. She understood her family would challenge everything. I met his gaze. I'm not afraid of a legal battle. You should be afraid of what happens outside the courtroom. Your cousins have connections, money. They could make your life very difficult. Are you trying to talk me out of reclaiming what's mine? I'm making sure you understand the cost. His thumb traced my jawline, the gesture intimate despite the public setting. If you pursue this, you'll have enemies, powerful ones. Then I'll need powerful allies. I smiled slightly. Good thing I'm engaged to the city's most notorious businessmen. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, appreciation, and something darker I couldn't name. This isn't a game, Grace. I know, but I'm done running from fights just because they're dangerous. I stepped back, creating distance before I did something foolish like lean into his touch. I spent 3 years hiding because one man tried to control me. I won't hide from my own family because they want to steal my grandmother's legacy, even if it means staying in my world longer than 6 months. The question hung between us, loaded with implications. The contract specifies 6 months, I said carefully. Contracts can be renegotiated. James moved closer, his voice dropping. If you pursue the legal claim, you'll need protection. Sullivan already sees you as leverage against me. Your cousins will see you as an obstacle. 6 months won't be long enough to resolve either problem. What are you suggesting? An extension. 1 year total. Full protection, legal support for your claim, and continued public relationship. His eyes searched mine. In exchange, you help me with something. Help you with what? Sullivan is planning something. I don't know what yet, but my sources indicate he's been meeting with Eastern European contacts, arms dealers, human traffickers, the kind of people who make my business look ethical. James's expression hardened. I need someone he won't suspect. Someone who can move through social circles and observe without triggering his paranoia. Someone intelligent enough to recognize patterns. You want me to spy. I want you to attend parties, Make friends with the right people. And tell me what you learn. You're good at observation. 6 years cataloging manuscripts taught you to notice details. He touched my hand lightly. And Sullivan already thinks you're just a harmless librarian playing dress-up. He'll underestimate you completely. I should have refused. Should have stuck to the original 6-month agreement and walked away clean. Instead, I thought about my grandmother's trembling hands, about the codex that held our family's future, about Kate's warning that men like James didn't fall for women like me. But what if I didn't need him to fall? What if partnership was enough? 1 year, I said slowly, but I want additional terms. His eyebrow lifted. Negotiate then. The codex gets returned to my grandmother immediately, not at the end of the contract. I want your lawyers on retainer for the legal claim, full support, not just consultation. And I want it in writing that you won't use any illegal methods against my cousins, legal warfare only. Done, and agreed with one caveat. If they use illegal methods first, I reserve the right to respond proportionally. James extended his hand. Anything else? I hesitated, then pushed further. I want to know what I'm walking into. Your world, your business, the truth about what you actually do. No more vague implications and calculated revelations. If I'm going to be your partner in this, even temporarily, I deserve full transparency. For a long moment, he simply studied me. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. Tomorrow evening. My office. I'll show you everything. The legitimate businesses, the less legitimate operations, the full scope of what you're agreeing to protect yourself with. His grip on my hand tightened. But understand, Grace, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know, you're complicit. Even if you walk away after the year, you'll carry that knowledge. I understand. Do you? His voice went soft, almost gentle. Because I'm offering you an exit right now. Take the codex, pursue your legal claim on your own, and disappear back into your quiet life. I'll even provide security for 6 months to keep Sullivan at bay. No strings, no obligations. It was a genuine offer. I could see it in his eyes. He'd let me walk away if I chose. The smart choice was obvious. I stepped closer instead, rising on my toes to whisper against his ear. I don't want the exit, James. I want the truth. All of it. When I pulled back, his expression had transformed into something hungry and dangerous, and utterly focused on me. Then you'll get it, he promised. Every dark corner, every moral compromise, everything I've built and destroyed. And when you run, because most people do, I'll remember that I offered you the chance to leave while you still could. I'm not most people. No, he agreed, his thumb tracing my lower lip with devastating gentleness. You're really not. The orchestra began another waltz. This time when he pulled me close, there was nothing businesslike about the embrace. His hand splayed across my back, holding me against him while we moved through the crowd of dancers who had no idea they were watching something real take shape between two people pretending to be in love. Tomorrow I'd see the truth of his empire. Tomorrow I'd understand exactly what I was bargaining with. Tonight, I let myself enjoy the fiction we'd created, the fairy tale where the librarian captured the criminal's attention and wasn't sure she wanted to let go. James's office occupied the entire top floor of Thornton Industries, a legitimate investment firm that apparently managed portfolios worth billions. The space was all glass and steel, minimalist elegance that somehow felt warm despite its sharp edges. William escorted me up at 7 p.m., exactly as instructed. The sun was setting over the city, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. He's waiting in the conference room, William said, his expression carefully neutral. Miss Mitchell, whatever he shows you tonight, remember that Mr. Thornton doesn't share this information lightly. It means he trusts you. Or he's testing me. Perhaps both. William's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I think you're good for him. He's been different since the auction. More human. The conference room held a single table, 2 chairs, and a wall of monitors. James stood by the windows, his back to me, hands in his pockets. He'd removed his suit jacket, wearing just the white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. Even in silhouette, he commanded the space. Close the door, he said without turning. I did, my heart hammering. This was the moment of truth, literally. He turned finally, his expression unreadable. Last chance, Grace. Walk away now, and I'll honor all the terms we discussed. Codex, legal support, security. No judgment, no consequences. Stop offering me exits, I said, moving to stand across from him. I made my choice. Show me. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or resignation. He touched a control panel, and the monitors lit up with documents. Financial records, organizational charts that looked like something from a crime thriller. Thornton Industries is legitimate, he began. We manage investment portfolios, provide venture capital, consult on mergers and acquisitions. Everything by the book, fully licensed, completely legal. He pulled up another screen. That represents about 40% of my income. The rest comes from operations that exist in gray areas, or darker. He walked me through it systematically. Import-export businesses that occasionally moved restricted goods. Real estate holdings that laundered money from less savory sources. Protection services for businesses that couldn't go to the police. Information brokering that skirted privacy laws. I don't deal drugs, he said flatly. I don't traffic humans. I don't hurt innocents. Those are my 3 absolutes. Cross any of those lines, and you're out of my organization permanently. His gaze held mine. But I'm not a good man, Grace. I've destroyed businesses that threatened mine. I've made people disappear, not killed, but relocated with strong incentives never to return. I've manipulated markets, bribed officials, and used violence when necessary to protect what's mine. Why are you telling me this? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Because you asked for truth, and because if you're going to observe Sullivan for me, you need to understand the world you're navigating. He pulled up a new file. Surveillance photos of Patrick Sullivan meeting with dangerous-looking men in expensive suits. These are the Volkov brothers, Eastern European arms dealers with connections to every major conflict zone in the world. Sullivan's been courting them for 3 months. I studied the images, my mind cataloging details automatically. He's planning to expand into weapons trafficking. That's my assessment, which violates the territorial agreements we established 5 years ago. If Sullivan brings that kind of operation into this city, it attracts federal attention we can't afford. It endangers every business, legitimate and otherwise, that operates here. So you want to stop him? I want to know his timeline, his supply chains, his buyers. I want leverage to force him back into compliance or remove him from the equation entirely. James turned to face me fully. That's where you come in. Sullivan will be at the Westmore Gallery opening this Friday. His mistress, not the woman you saw at the gala, he cycles through them, fancies herself an art collector. You'll attend, strike up a conversation, befriend her if possible. She talks when she drinks, and she drinks at every event. You want me to manipulate a lonely woman into giving up her boyfriend's secrets. I want you to make a friend and listen carefully. His expression softened slightly. I'm not asking you to seduce information out of her. Just be yourself, intelligent, observant, genuinely interested in art. The rest will follow naturally. I moved to the window, looking out at the city sprawling below us. Somewhere down there, my grandmother sat in her care facility, unable to speak, but trusting me to fight for our family's legacy. Somewhere, my cousins were probably celebrating what they thought was their inevitable victory. And somewhere, Patrick Sullivan was building an empire that would hurt people. If I do this, I said slowly, if I help you stop Sullivan's weapons operation, I'm choosing sides. I'm choosing your version of criminal enterprise over his. Yes. How am I supposed to justify that? How do I tell myself I'm still a good person? James moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. You don't. You accept that morality isn't binary. You decide which compromises you can live with, and which ones will destroy you. His hand came up, gently turning my face toward his. I told you knowing the truth would make you complicit. This is what that means. I should have pulled away. Should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I leaned into his touch, letting my eyes close for just a moment. I'm scared, I admitted. Not of Sullivan or the danger. I'm scared that I'm good at this, that I liked standing up to him at the gala, that I want to help you not because it's right, but because it feels powerful. There's nothing wrong with wanting power, Grace. It's what you do with it that matters. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You could have used the Codex leverage to demand money from me. Instead, you asked for legal support and protection for your grandmother. That tells me everything about your character. Or it tells you I'm naive about my own motivations. You're the least naive person I've met in years. He smiled slightly, the expression transforming his usually severe features. You see clearly, you just don't like what you're seeing in yourself. That self-awareness is rare in my world. I opened my eyes, meeting his gaze. What if I'm terrible at this spy thing? What if Sullivan sees right through me? Then I'll handle it. You're under my protection, remember? That's not just words. His expression hardened. Anyone who threatens you threatens me. Sullivan understands that dynamic, even if he's testing its boundaries. Why does that make me feel safe instead of trapped? Because you're finally tired of being alone in your fights. His hand slid into my hair, the gesture intimate despite the business discussion. You've spent years proving you don't need anyone. Maybe it's time to discover what you could accomplish with the right partner. The word partner hit differently than fiancé or asset or tool. It implied equality, collaboration, choice. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll go to the gallery opening. I'll talk to Sullivan's mistress. I'll observe and report and help you stop whatever he's planning. I placed my hand over his, still cradling my face. But James, if this crosses into something that hurts innocent people, I'm out. That's my absolute line. Agreed. And if I ask you to cross it, you have permission to walk away with everything I've promised you. No retaliation, no consequences. You'd let me go that easily? His laugh was dark and honest. Nothing about letting you go would be easy, but I'd do it if it meant keeping you safe from becoming something you'd hate. The confession hung between us, too raw to be part of the business arrangement. I turned in his arms. When had they wrapped around me? And looked up at the man who'd somehow become central to my world in less than 2 weeks. This isn't fake anymore, is it? I whispered. No, he agreed, his forehead resting against mine. It stopped being fake the moment you challenged Sullivan at the gala, maybe even earlier, when you stood in that storage room and demanded I explain myself instead of cowering. The contract is a piece of paper that protects us both legally. It has nothing to do with this. His hands framed my face, tilting it up. I'm going to kiss you now, Grace. Not for cameras, not for witnesses, just because I've been wanting to since you signed your name and smiled at me like you'd won something. I did win something. The Codex. You won considerably more than that. His mouth brushed mine, gentle at first, testing. When I gasped softly, his kiss deepened, becoming something claiming and desperate and absolutely real. I'd been kissed before, been in relationships, been engaged to someone who'd turned controlling and cruel. But I'd never felt this. The sense that I was finally meeting someone who matched me completely. Someone who saw my strength instead of feeling threatened by it. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, James kept me close, his hands still tangled in my hair. The gallery opening is Friday, he said, his voice rougher than before. Which gives us 3 days to prepare your cover story and make sure you understand what to look for. We'll have dinner every evening, my penthouse, private, where we can talk freely. Your penthouse. I tried to steady my racing heart. Not a restaurant. I want you comfortable. I want you to see how I live when I'm not performing for the city. He kissed my forehead, the gesture surprisingly tender. And selfishly, I want you to myself without worrying about photographers or Sullivan's spies. That's not part of the contract. Nothing about us has been part of the contract since the beginning. We've just been pretending it was. He released me slowly, stepping back with visible reluctance. William will drive you home. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., My place. Wear something comfortable. We're strategizing, not performing. I nodded, my lips still tingling from his kiss. James? Earlier, you said most people run when they see the truth about your world. Why did you think I'd be different? His smile was slow and devastating. Because you've been running from your own strength for years. I'm not showing you darkness, Grace. I'm showing you power, and you've been hungry for that since long before we met. The only question is whether you're brave enough to take it. He was right, I realized as William drove me home through the city lights. I'd spent 6 years being invisible, because visible meant vulnerable. But standing in James's office, learning the truth about his empire, feeling his kiss brand itself into my memory, that hadn't felt vulnerable. It had felt like finally, I'd found somewhere I belonged. Kate was waiting at my apartment, armed with wine and worry. I told her everything. The truth about James's business, the plan to spy on Sullivan's mistress, the kiss that had rewritten every assumption I'd made about this arrangement. You're falling in love with a criminal, she said, not quite a question. I'm falling for a man who treats me like an equal. The criminal part is just context. Grace, that's not... She stopped, seeing my expression. You've already decided, haven't you? You're all in. I am. I looked at her, my best friend who'd stood by me through every bad decision and heartbreak. Tell me I'm being reckless. Tell me this is going to end badly. Would it change your mind if I did? No. Kate sighed, pouring more wine. Then I'll tell you to be careful, to keep your eyes open, and to remember that powerful men, even ones who kiss you like you matter, still have agendas. So do powerful women, I replied, thinking about the version of myself I'd seen reflected in James's office windows. Confident, capable, done apologizing for taking up space. Friday would be my first test. Sullivan's mistress, the gallery opening, my debut as something more than the invisible librarian. I was ready, terrified, but ready. And 3 days of private dinners with James first meant 3 days to understand exactly who I was becoming, and whether I could live with her. The gallery opening glittered with the kind of people who bought art for investment rather than beauty. I navigated through champagne and conversation, wearing a black dress that was elegant without being memorable, James's suggestion. Blend in, observe, become part of the background. It reminded me uncomfortably of my library strategy, except this time I was invisible by design rather than fear. Sullivan's mistress stood near a particularly ugly abstract piece, her laughter too loud, and her champagne glass perpetually empty. Jennifer Davies. I'd memorized her file over dinner with James the night before. 28. Former art history major, current ornament to a dangerous man who'd lose interest in her the moment someone younger appeared. That piece is hideous, isn't it? I said, moving to stand beside her. She startled, then smiled with genuine relief at finding a kindred spirit. Absolutely terrible. But Patrick insists I admire the artist. Something about investment potential. Her voice held that particular brittleness of someone performing a role they hated. Men always think they know better about art, I commiserated, signaling for champagne. I'm Grace. I'm new to these things. My fiancé drags me to every opening, but I'd rather be home with a good book. Oh God, yes. Jennifer's shoulders relaxed. I'm Jennifer, and your fiancé is. James Thornton. Do you know him? Her expression flickered. Recognition, wariness, curiosity. By reputation. Patrick mentions him sometimes. She leaned closer, conspiratorial. They hate each other, don't they? Business rivalry, apparently. Though honestly, I try not to pay attention to that side of things. I smiled self-deprecatingly. I'm just a librarian who accidentally got engaged to someone important. Still figuring out how to navigate all this. The confession was calculated. Jennifer needed to feel superior, needed to believe I was naive and harmless. From the way her posture softened, it worked. A librarian? That's so refreshing. Everyone here is so. She gestured vaguely. Artificial. Come on, let's look at something actually beautiful. There's a collection of illuminated manuscripts in the back room that might interest you. We spent the next hour discussing medieval art and book preservation, topics where my genuine knowledge made the connection feel authentic. Jennifer was intelligent. Her degree hadn't been for show, but trapped in a relationship that valued her appearance over her mind. I recognized that trap. I'd lived in it for 2 years with my ex. Patrick doesn't understand why I care about this stuff, she admitted, studying a 14th century psalter. He thinks art is just money laundering and status symbols. Is that what he does? Money laundering? I made it sound naive, curious rather than fishing, among other things. She drained another champagne flute. He's been meeting with these Russian men lately. Scary types. They make Patrick seem gentle, which is saying something. Russians? I kept my tone light, interested but not pressing. The Volkov brothers. Patrick says they're going to make him richer than Thornton. Something about new markets, new products. Jennifer's expression darkened. I shouldn't talk about this. Patrick would be furious if he knew I mentioned them. I touched her arm gently. It's okay. I won't say anything. James doesn't tell me about business anyway. He thinks I'd be bored. Patrick's the same. Treats me like I'm decoration. She looked at me with sudden intensity. Grace, can I ask you something? Do you think you'll marry him? You're James? The question caught me off guard. Yes, I think I will. Why? If you don't care about the money or the power. I thought about James's hands framing my face, his voice promising protection and partnership and truth. About 3 evenings in his penthouse, learning to read his expressions and anticipate his thoughts, about the way he listened when I talked about manuscripts and medieval history, genuinely interested despite having no practical reason to care. Because he sees me, I said honestly. Not what I could be useful for, just me. And I see him too. The parts he doesn't show anyone else. Jennifer's eyes went bright with unshed tears. That must be nice. We exchanged numbers after that, plans to meet for coffee later that week. As I left the gallery, I texted James. Made contact. She's unhappy and drinks too much. Mentioned Volkov brothers and new markets. Meeting her Thursday for coffee. His response came immediately. Well done. Come to the penthouse now. We need to debrief, and I need to see you. The last part made my pulse jump. William picked me up outside the gallery, and 20 minutes later I was riding the private elevator to James's penthouse, my heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with spycraft. He opened the door before I could knock, still in the white dress shirt and dark slacks from his own evening. Sleeves rolled up, top button undone. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. Tell me everything, he said, pulling me inside. I did, sitting on his leather sofa while he poured wine and listened with complete focus. When I finished describing Jennifer's mention of the Volkov brothers and new markets, his expression went grim. New markets means new cities. He's planning to expand beyond our territory. James set down his glass with controlled precision. That violates every agreement we've established. It's grounds for open war. What will you do? Gather more information first. Confirm his timeline, identify his supply chain, find leverage. He moved to sit beside me, close enough that our knees touched. Your coffee date with Jennifer. Can you get her talking about Patrick's schedule? I need to know when he's meeting with the Volkovs next. She's lonely, James. Trapped in a relationship with a man who treats her like property. I met his eyes. I can't just use her and disappear afterward. That makes me as bad as him. What are you suggesting? When this is over, when you've stopped whatever Sullivan is planning, you help her get out. Set her up somewhere safe. Give her enough money to start over without needing him. I touched his hand. Make it part of our agreement. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then approval, then something warmer. You're negotiating terms for someone you just met. I'm protecting someone who reminds me of myself 3 years ago, before I found the courage to leave. I laced my fingers through his. You said you don't hurt innocents. Jennifer is innocent. She's just collateral damage in your war with Sullivan. James studied our joined hands, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. You're going to cost me a fortune in moral compromises, aren't you? Probably. Is that a problem? No. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat spiraling through me. It's one of the things He stopped himself. One of the things I admire most about you. What were you going to say before you censored yourself? His eyes met mine, storm gray and intense. Something that would complicate our arrangement considerably. Maybe I want complicated. Grace. I kissed him before he could finish the thought, before rational considerations could stop me. He responded immediately, pulling me into his lap, his hands tangling in my hair while his mouth claimed mine with desperate hunger. This wasn't the controlled kiss from his office. This was need stripped bare, 6 days of tension and attraction and partnership crystallizing into something that felt inevitable. When we finally broke apart, I was straddling his lap, my dress hiked up, both of us breathing hard. James's hands spanned my waist, his forehead resting against mine. We should stop, he said, not moving. Probably. This crosses professional boundaries. We crossed those at the auction. I kissed him again, softer this time. James, I know this is complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons this is a terrible idea. But I'm tired of pretending this is just business when it stopped being business weeks ago. His grip tightened. If we do this, if we make this real, it changes everything. The contract becomes meaningless. You're no longer protected by clear terms and exit clauses. Good. I don't want exit clauses. I cupped his face, forcing him to look at me. I want you. Not the performance, not the arrangement. You. You don't know what you're asking. My life, my world. I've seen your world. You spent 3 nights showing me every dark corner, every compromise, every line you've crossed. I'm still here. I smiled slightly. Actually, I'm in your lap actively trying to seduce you, so I'd say I'm more than just here. His laugh was strangled. You're impossible. And you're stalling. I kissed his jaw, his neck, feeling his pulse jump beneath my lips. Tell me you don't want this. Tell me it's still just an arrangement, and I'll go home right now. For 3 heartbeats, he was silent. Then his hand slid up my back, holding me against him. I can't, he admitted roughly. I can't tell you that because it would be a lie. You've been driving me insane since you stood in that storage room and challenged me. Since you smiled at the gala like you'd won something. Since you negotiated terms for Jennifer's safety like her freedom mattered as much as your own. Then stop fighting it. He kissed me again. Slower this time, but deeper. His hands mapping my curves through the black dress. When he stood, carrying me toward his bedroom, I wrapped my legs around his waist and let myself surrender to the truth we'd both been avoiding. This had never been fake. From the moment he'd pulled me against him and claimed me as his in front of Sullivan, we'd been writing a different story than either of us intended. His bedroom was all dark wood and crisp sheets, windows overlooking the city. He set me down gently, his hands cupping my face. Last chance, he murmured. Once we do this, I won't be able to let you go. Not in 6 months, not in a year. You'll be mine for real, and I'm not a man who shares. I don't want you to let me go. I started unbuttoning his shirt. And I don't want you to share. I want exactly this. You and me. No more performance, no more contracts. Just us. His smile was slow and devastating. Then you have me, Grace Mitchell. All of me, including the parts you shouldn't want. Especially those parts, I corrected, and pulled him down to me. That night we stopped pretending, stopped performing, stopped maintaining professional distance and careful boundaries. We became what we'd been circling toward since that first moment. 2 people who'd found something real in the midst of lies and danger and impossible situations. And when I woke the next morning in his bed, his arm wrapped around my waist, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. Not of his world, not of the danger, not of Sullivan's threats. I was exactly where I wanted to be. Coffee with Jennifer Thursday afternoon revealed more than I'd expected. She was drunk by noon, her hands shaking as she ordered her 3rd Irish coffee, and the words tumbled out like a dam breaking. He's planning something big, she whispered, leaning across the cafe table. Next Friday. The warehouse district by the docks. Patrick thinks I don't listen when he's on the phone, but I hear everything. I recorded it all mentally, Dates, locations, the nervous energy in her voice that suggested she knew too much and wanted desperately to tell someone. "Jennifer, are you safe?" I asked quietly. "If Patrick suspects you know about his business, he doesn't see me as a threat. I'm just the pretty girl who smiles at parties." Bitterness laced her words. "But Grace, these men he's meeting with, the Volkovs, they're dangerous. Patrick thinks he can control them, but I've seen how they look at him. Like he's useful until he's not." "Then why stay?" She laughed, the sound hollow. "Where would I go? I dropped out of grad school for Patrick, burned bridges with my family. He's made sure I'm dependent on him for everything." Her eyes met mine, desperate. "You're lucky. James Thornton might be dangerous, but he looks at you like you matter. Like you're a person, not property." Guilt twisted through me. I was using her, extracting information under the guise of friendship. But the trapped look in her eyes was genuine, and so was my growing determination to help her escape. That evening, I brought everything to James. His penthouse had become familiar territory over the past 2 weeks. I had a toothbrush in his bathroom now, clothes in his closet, a comfortable presence in his private space that felt both thrilling and terrifyingly domestic. "Next Friday, Doc's warehouse," I reported, curled into the leather sofa while he paced. "Jennifer doesn't know specifics, but Patrick's been tense. She thinks it's a major shipment arrival." James stopped moving, his expression calculating. "That's the timeline for the Volkov weapons deal. If we can catch them during transfer, we have leverage. Evidence for the feds or blackmail for me, depending on which serves better." "And Jennifer?" "Gets her exit package as promised. New identity if necessary, funds to start over, protection from Sullivan's reach." He sat beside me, pulling me against him. "You kept your word to her. I'll keep mine." I relaxed into his embrace, breathing in the cedar and leather scent that had become synonymous with safety. "When this is over, what happens to us?" "The arrangement was supposed to last a year. It's been less than a month. The arrangement ended the night you kissed me in my office." His lips brushed my temple. "What we have now is something else entirely. What do we call it?" "Mine." The word was possessive, absolute. "You're mine, Grace. Not because of contracts or agreements, but because you chose this. Chose me, knowing exactly who I am." "That should scare me," I murmured. "The possessiveness, the intensity. It should remind me of your ex." James tilted my face up. "Except he wanted to make you smaller. I want to watch you become powerful. He isolated you from everyone who cared about you. I encouraged you to maintain your friendship with Kate, your work at the library, your own identity separate from me. It was true." Over the past month, James had actively supported my independence, insisting I keep my library hours, meeting Kate for dinner when she wanted to vet him properly, even funding the legal case for my grandmother's estate without demanding I abandon it. "You're dangerous in different ways," I said. "Yes, but never to you." His thumb traced my lower lip. "Sullivan, your cousins, anyone who threatens what's mine, they should be terrified. You should feel safe." The distinction mattered. With my ex, I'd been the one walking on eggshells, afraid of triggering his anger. With James, the fear belonged to anyone who might hurt me. Friday came too quickly. The plan was simple. William and James's security team would surveil the warehouse transfer. I would stay at the penthouse, safe and uninvolved in the actual confrontation. My role as observer was complete, except nothing ever went according to plan. I was reviewing medieval manuscripts for the library's new acquisition, work I could do remotely now, when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Grace Mitchell?" The voice was accented, Eastern European. Cold. "Who is this?" "Alexei Volkov. We have a mutual friend, James Thornton. Also a mutual problem, Patrick Sullivan." A pause. "And now, a mutual interest. I'm looking at surveillance footage from the Westmore Gallery. You and Patrick's woman, very friendly." Ice flooded my veins. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult my intelligence. You've been gathering information on Sullivan for Thornton. Clever, using the lonely girlfriend. But now Sullivan knows. Jennifer talked. They always do when properly motivated. His voice dropped. She's currently in hospital. Unfortunate accident. Very tragic. Sullivan is most displeased about the betrayal. My hands shook. Is she alive? For now. Whether she stays that way depends on you. Alexei's tone turned businesslike. Come to the warehouse. Alone. Trade yourself for her. One information gatherer for another. Sullivan gets revenge. I get my deal completed without Thornton's interference. Everyone wins. Except me. Except you, he agreed cheerfully. But you seem like a woman who values honor. Jennifer's situation is your fault. This is your chance to make it right. You have 1 hour. Come alone or I tell Sullivan exactly where to find her family. He'll kill them to make a point. The call ended. For 10 seconds, I sat frozen. Then muscle memory took over. I texted the address to James with a single word. Trapped. Then I turned off my phone's location services, grabbed my keys, and ran. The warehouse district was exactly as grim as expected. Rusted metal, broken windows, the smell of seawater and decay. I found the address easily, a large building with SUVs parked outside. Before I could talk myself out of it, I walked through the door. Patrick Sullivan stood in the center of the space, flanked by men with guns. The Volkov brothers, I recognized them from James's surveillance photos, lounged against a crate of what I assumed were weapons, and tied to a chair, bloodied but conscious, was Jennifer. The librarian, Sullivan said, smiling like a shark. How noble, how stupid. Let her go. I'm here like Alexei requested. Trade me for her. Oh, we'll let her go, eventually. After she watches what happens to people who betray me. Sullivan moved closer, his expression ugly. You've been quite the thorn in Thornton's side, haven't you? Playing spy, gathering information, thinking you're so clever. I was helping a friend. You were helping yourself to my business. He backhanded me casually, the blow sending me stumbling. Where's Thornton? Called his attack dogs the moment you left? I tasted blood, my cheek throbbing. I came alone. Liar. But uncertainty flickered in his eyes. The warehouse door exploded inward. James entered like violence personified, William and 10 armed men behind him. His eyes found me immediately, scanning for injuries, and the fury that crossed his face when he saw the blood on my mouth was absolutely terrifying. Touch her again, he said, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. And I'll make sure you die very, very slowly. Thornton. Sullivan recovered his composure, gun appearing in his hand, pressed against Jennifer's temple. How predictable. Shall we negotiate? There's nothing to negotiate. Let them both go, and I'll consider letting you live. Alexei Volkov laughed. Big words for a man outnumbered. My men have rifles trained on your security from the catwalks. Sullivan has a hostage. You have nothing but reputation. I have leverage. James pulled out his phone, projecting an image on the warehouse wall. Financial records, transaction receipts, communications. Complete documentation of your weapons deal. Times, dates, buyers. Everything the FBI would need to shut down your entire operation and freeze your assets globally. Alexei's smile faded. Bluff. Test me. James's voice was arctic. I've already sent copies to 3 different federal agencies with instructions to release if I don't check in within the hour. So here's the actual negotiation. You let Grace and Jennifer walk out of here right now, and I'll delete the files. You get your deal with Sullivan completed, and I get what's mine back safely. And me? Sullivan's gun pressed harder against Jennifer's head. What do I get? Exile. Effective immediately. You leave this city, take your operations elsewhere, and never come back. In exchange, I don't release the secondary files documenting your embezzlement from the Volkov brothers. James's smile was vicious. Did you think I wouldn't notice you skimming off the top of their payments? 20% over 6 months. They'll be very interested to learn about that. I watched Alexei's expression change. Surprise, then calculation, then cold rage directed at Sullivan. Is this true? Alexei asked softly. Sullivan's face went white. I can explain. No explanation necessary. Alexei nodded to his men. Let the women go. Deal with Sullivan. Thornton, delete the files as promised. Everything happened fast. Jennifer was released, William catching her before she collapsed. 2 of Alexei's men grabbed Sullivan, disarming him efficiently, and James crossed the warehouse to me in long strides, his hands immediately gentle as they cupped my bruised face. You came alone, he said, his voice shaking with barely contained emotion. You walked into a trap to save someone you barely knew, and you didn't call me. I texted you after you were already on your way. Grace, you could have been killed. His forehead pressed against mine, his hands trembling. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever choose honor over survival when it means leaving me. I couldn't let her die because of me. Then we save her together. We handle threats together. He kissed me fiercely, desperately, like he needed to confirm I was real and safe. You're mine to protect, remember? That means you don't face danger alone anymore. William approached quietly. Boss, we need to move. Police response time to the area is 8 minutes. James nodded, his arm wrapping around me as he guided me toward the exit. Behind us, I heard Sullivan's pleading turn to screaming as Alexei's men dragged him away. I didn't look back. Jennifer was already in one of the SUVs, wrapped in blankets, William coordinating her medical care and immediate relocation. She caught my eye as we passed, mouthing thank you with such desperate gratitude that my chest ached. She'll be safe? I asked James as we drove away. New identity, new city, full protection package. She'll never have to see Sullivan or depend on anyone dangerous again. His hand found mine, gripping tight. Unlike you, who apparently can't resist dangerous situations. I learned from the best. His laugh was strangled. Grace, when I got your text, when I realized you'd gone alone. He couldn't finish the sentence. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking strategically. I just knew Jennifer was hurt because of me, and I couldn't live with that. I squeezed his hand. But you're right. From now on, we handle threats together. Good, because you're not getting rid of me. Not in a year, not ever. He pulled me against him, his lips against my hair. You're mine, and I protect what's mine with everything I have. 3 months later, my grandmother's estate claim was settled in our favor. The Blackwell Codex sat in a climate-controlled display case at Harrington Library, on permanent loan with my family retaining ownership. My cousins had lost spectacularly, their hired lawyers no match for the team James had assembled. Jennifer sent postcards from Seattle, where she'd started a graduate program in art history under her new name. Each one thanked me for the second chance. Patrick Sullivan disappeared completely. Rumors suggested the Volkov brothers had made an example of him, but James never confirmed or denied. Some questions were better left unasked, and I became exactly what I'd discovered that night in the warehouse. Not James Thornton's fragile librarian girlfriend who needed constant protection. His partner. The woman who could hold her own in his world, who challenged him when he crossed lines, who managed the legitimate businesses with the same precision I'd once used to catalog medieval manuscripts. The city learned quickly that Grace Mitchell Thornton wasn't decoration or weakness. I was the reason James's empire started operating more ethically, the person who reorganized his legitimate holdings until they outpaced his gray market operations in profit. The voice that said no, when even his most trusted advisors were afraid to. We married quietly 6 months after the warehouse, a small ceremony with Kate, William, Margaret from the library, and a few trusted associates. No performance, no spectacle. Just us, choosing each other with clear eyes and complete honesty. You could still leave, James murmured during our first dance as a married couple. I'd set you up comfortably, make sure you were safe. You don't have to stay in this world. I looked at him, my husband, my partner, the dangerous man who'd somehow become my home, and smiled. I'm not staying because I have to. I'm staying because I choose to. Every day, knowing exactly who you are and who we are together. I pulled him closer. You were wrong about one thing, though. What's that? You said I'd cost you a fortune in moral compromises. But really, I've saved you one. You're not the man you were before the auction. You're better because you let me make you better. His smile was slow and genuine. And you're not the invisible librarian anymore. You're the woman who runs half my empire and isn't afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. Someone has to keep you honest. Honest is generous. You keep me human. He kissed me softly. I love you, Grace. For the record, in case the possessive claims and literal criminal acts weren't clear enough. I love you too. Even the criminal acts. Especially the criminal acts committed in my defense. We danced in our small reception, surrounded by the unlikely family we'd built. And when I caught Kate's eye across the room, she mouthed, "You were right. Not all powerful men are the same." She was correct. Some powerful men wanted to make you smaller, and some, rare, dangerous, complicated men like James Thornton wanted to watch you become powerful enough to stand beside them. I'd chosen the latter, and I'd never regretted it for a single moment.